Planet Earth, its unique combination of continents, oceans and atmosphere, makes it the only home to life that we know. But our home is under unprecedented stress, driven by strong population growth and rapid consumerism. Earth's finite resources are being consumed at an ever quicker rate because growth is the cornerstone of our societies. We humans are altering the Earth's land, water and atmosphere faster and beyond its replenishable boundaries. So what happens to everything we produce and consume? A large portion is thrown away.
Just like these drinks cans, plastic bottles and glass bottles, a lot of these end up being disposed of in nature, and they get washed down in rivers, into our estuaries like this here. They eventually end up out in the deep sea, and they do massive damage floating around our oceans.
In Ireland, we generate nearly 20 million tonnes of waste each year. In this programme, I'm going to explore the impact that all this waste has on our environment.
And how we can turn waste into a resource that can generate thousands of new livelihoods in Ireland.
Currently, over 7 billion of us are consuming about 50% more resources than the Earth can replenish. We only have one planet, but in Ireland we're consuming at the rate of 4 planets. Most of these resources are wasted and disposed of into the air, water, or even nature.
Plastic bottles, bread wrappings, more plastic, all strewn along the estuary.
Today my journey begins in Portmarnock to join one of the many community litter programmes run by An Taisce all over Ireland, to see what they're doing to tackle this problem.
Good to see you all ready, all the gear and everything, yeah?
The Portmarnock Clean Coast Group meet here on the Strand once a month.
On a beach like this, there are 3 main categories of marine litter that we need to be concerned about. One is recreational litter, which is things like food packaging, drinks bottles, plastic containers.
What's the most common thing you find here?
Plastic bottles is the biggest thing. We're coming in, obviously left behind by people who are down here on the beach, but also coming in on the tide. We get a lot of plastic bottles coming in.
About 70% of what we find on our beaches is actually made of plastic. The problem with plastic is that it persists in the marine environment, and every piece of plastic that has ever entered our oceans is still there today, either as the whole component or a part of that component.
The second source of marine litter is from ocean activity.
How are you, Duncan?
Did you get this on the beach?
Yeah, it was, there was a couple of storms just over the last week, so it's obviously come off a boat. So you'd have a proportion of the rubbish would come in from the sea, from recreational boats or whatever, you know.
And the other category that we need to be concerned about is sewage-related litter. And this is the stuff that we are flushing down our toilets that we should be disposing of into domestic waste. So cotton bud sticks, sanitary products and baby wipes.
There's also the issue of microbeads, tiny bits of plastic that are in personal hygiene products that flow from the bathroom to the sea.
And a lot of these, in fact thousands of these, are on our shelves with little tiny plastic ingredients in them to act as abrasives. And these are actually a really damaging part of marine litter.
Hi ladies.
Hiya, Duncan.
Have you got anything?
Yes. Well, as you can see, it's mostly all plastic tops.
Yeah.
See them all there? You spend your whole life picking up them plastic tops.
So they're one of the most common things?
They're the most common things and the most dangerous things. If we had lemonade bottles that they could bring them back, they bring them back to shop, get their tuppence or threepence, whatever it is nowadays on them.
So a deposit refund would be a good idea?
Yes, would be a great idea.
This is about raising awareness, and it's about everybody being able to do a little bit and be part of a larger global movement to reduce the levels and amounts of marine litter in our environment.
A UN report found that marine litter primarily plastic, is killing more than 1 million seabirds and 100,000 mammals each year.
All of these species have taken millions of years to evolve, and in an incredibly small time since plastic was invented, this massive damage has been done. It's a huge issue, isn't it?
Yeah. It is a really big issue, and the stomach of a seabird is not something really big. So if they are eating a lot of material that is not for their nutrition, they're just not going to have space for real food. So they're just not getting any nutrition, so the birds can just die of starvation.
So what sort of things do you find in a bird's stomach?
Yeah, so I actually have a sample here in my pocket. I'm going to show you what I found in the stomach of a foamer. So all of this, the 2 containers, were found in one single stomach of a foamer. Yeah, so you see this is a little piece of styrofoam, and these are little bits of plastics that are, just broken down. They could perforate the stomach of the animal, and then, the animal could have ulcers as well. Yeah.
And their stomachs are so tiny.
Yeah. By the looks of it, it was so much plastic that there was no space for any food, and I didn't find a lot of organic material, so it means that the bird wasn't really eating much. It's amazing to think that plastic was actually invented less than 100 years ago, and now it's taken over, and I feel like humans didn't really think about it.
And it's not the only thing we humans didn't think about. The vast amount of raw materials we're consuming are depleting our planet's resources at a phenomenal rate.
Up till now, our economy has been based on the linear model of take, make, waste, where every product is disposed, often after a very short lifespan. This surely is not sustainable.
When it comes to waste, most of us don't worry about where it goes, as long as it's taken away. Out of sight, out of mind. An Irish environmental NGO, Voice, believes we are all responsible for waste management.
Can we sustain what's going on the planet?
We really can't, because we're extracting so many resources at the moment, and it's so costly to extract those resources. And if I look around here, I see aluminium cans, I see a sandwich pack here. This is used once, and that's it. So what we do is we extract, we produce, we consume, and then we dispose.
So who are the big polluters?
I say the biggest polluters are the manufacturers. They put toxics into their products, they overpackage their products as well, and so they need to take responsibility to reduce the amount of packaging that everything is wrapped up in. And it takes 200 years for an aluminium can to biodegrade. It takes 450 years for a piece of plastic to biodegrade. And if you have batteries like you have over there, they have toxic chemicals in them, and once they're out and about, open to the elements, they start leaching into the water and they contaminate water and land. We just can't continue to do this. We need to look at a more circular economy right now.
So what do you mean by circular economy?
Circular economy is, instead of a linear economy where you consume and dispose, so you reuse the resources over and over again. And in 2050, we're going to have 9.5 billion people. We won't have the resources or the food to feed these people unless we take actions now to use our resources wisely.
One of the valuable resources we waste is food. In Ireland, we waste 1/3 of all the food we buy. When food and garden waste and paper ends up in landfill, it decays and forms methane, a greenhouse gas that is 25 times more potent than its equivalent in CO2 when it comes to global warming. However, even more important than the emissions from this waste are the valuable finite resources that could be recovered and reused. Over the past few years, Irish household recovery rates have increased dramatically, and far less waste is ending up in landfill. Now, 40% of the waste we produce is sent for recycling. I'm here at Thornton's Recycling Centre to take a look at some of the waste Irish householders are throwing out and where it's all going.
So this is a typical sample of what we've taken in from our black bin today. We've got some material over here which is recyclable, and none of this material should have been placed in the black bin. So for example, we've got items such as plastic bottles which should have been placed in the green recycling bin. We've got samples here of some food waste that we found that should have been placed in the brown bin. We've also got some household batteries which should have been delivered back to the shops so that they could be reused. So this is a typical green bin which was collected yesterday from our Dublin area. So as you can see, we've got a lot of good, clean, dry recyclables in it, packed into it loosely.
So what about these sort of ones here?
These types of plastic should be placed in the black bin. These aren't readily recyclable in Ireland at the moment. And a typical way to identify them as non-recyclable is when you scrunch them up, they make a lot of noise and they also bounce back out into shape. So this is your typical brown bin that has come in for recycling. So this is your brown bin is for your food waste. Just empty it out here.
Okay, what's in this now?
Okay, so here's some examples of what people should not be doing. They've put a whole pan load of bread in its packaging into the brown bin, and again, that's not going to break down because it's all in its packaging.
So they should have just taken the food waste.
They should have taken the food waste out.
So why do you think that many householders are doing this?
Well, the brown bin is typically for food and garden waste, but a lot of householders believe that any waste from the kitchen is acceptable in the brown bin. So therefore, they're putting in the packaging that the food came in, which is not correct.
When this all comes in like this with so much contamination, what do you do with it?
This will still go to our composting facility and we will have to process it, but at the end of our process, this contamination then will end up going to landfill. And again, it won't be recycled.
Next year, every household will be required to have a black, green and brown bin for waste. And a pay-by-weight scheme will be introduced for all waste collection by 2016.
So yeah, 1st of July coming, there's going to
I
be
met up with
household
Helen
waste
Searson from the EPA to see how to get the most from our bins.
But the problem is, at the moment, we have close on 70% of the waste that's collected going into the black bin, where really it should be going into the brown bin, the green bin, and civic community sites.
That much, 70%?
Close to 70%,
really?
Yeah.
So over two-thirds is going into the black bin, and it shouldn't be.
It shouldn't be.
Helen's going to take me through some other items that are regularly found in the black bin that shouldn't be there.
Contaminants that were in the black bin, but they do have a home. So we have textiles, you can bring them to the civic community site. We've paint tins, definitely should not be going into your black bin. And then these things, waste electrical goods. So anything with a plug or a battery should not be going into your bin. That should be going back to the retailer on a like-for-like basis, or else it can go to your civic community sites. Really, what should go in the black bin is things that you can't put in your green bin, you can't put in your brown bin, and you can't bring to a civic community site to be recycled. So it should just be quite a small quantity of waste that would go into your black bin. I estimated that of the black bin waste that went to landfill in 2012, there was around €6 million worth of aluminium in those black bins, so such a value on that material that should not be going into landfill.
If people realised how many valuable resources that are being lost to landfill are going up in toxic smoke, they would be truly shocked. However, in recent years, our green bin recycling has greatly improved. Here at Thornton's recycling facility, valuable resources are reclaimed and recycled.
There's a value to all of the resources that we recycle and segregate in this facility, as well as diverting it away from going into landfill. Some of the materials, such as PET bottles and HD bottles, we can sell to outlets in Ireland, but the vast majority goes to Europe or to China for further recycling.
And do you think we could develop an awful lot more jobs in this area by recovering this waste and putting it into industries here that we could set up?
Of course, even on this facility alone, we're looking at having about 20 jobs per shift just to run this facility. So yes, recycling does mean more jobs for the country.
Within the EU, there are actions to cut our dependence on imported raw materials, and Denmark is one of the countries leading the way in recycling.
Currently in Ireland, we're exporting a huge amount of our waste abroad, and we're an island, so that has to be shipped to other countries. Is that a good or bad idea?
We know in all waste streams there are products in it which can be recycled, and you can build up a whole recycling industry which would create jobs in Ireland. And when you export all this waste, you are losing quite valuable materials.
Denmark is one of 10 European countries operating a deposit and refund scheme for cans and bottles. Last year, they brought in a unique credit system that rewards consumers for every can, plastic and glass bottle they return. The cans, glass and plastic bottles collected are sent to be sorted and then sold for recycling. And the whole system is funded by the drinks industry.
So Henrik, how do you use this?
I start by identifying myself by using my credit card. So the machine says hello. It closed down. Now it starts to identify the sack, to read the mark on the sack. Then I have a receipt now. I can go in on the internet and the money is on my account. And automatically. Yeah.
So you have 150 cans in this?
Approximately, yes.
What value would they be then in total?
It's probably 20 euros.
Okay, very good. If you take, typically in Denmark now, what percentage of them get returned now?
Nearly 90%.
Nearly 90%?
Nearly 90%, yes.
And that means 90% of all of those containers,
yes,
all recovered?
Yeah, they come into our system.
Great.
People can also bring bigger items to this depot. Items that are valuable are picked up by charities and resold. There's an educational corner for children. All these civic amenity services in Denmark are free.
So, one last thing before I leave. This is the exit, and when cars are going out this exit, what does it say here? It says, thank you for resorting your waste, and 87% is recycled, reused and repaired. 12% that comes in here of the waste goes into waste to energy, and only 1% ends up in landfill.
So how can we in Ireland achieve these figures? Should we introduce a deposit and refund system like Denmark? Would this system work in Ireland?
It's a great way to capture valuable resources. We're only recycling 55% of our aluminium cans right now. 45% is being thrown away, and aluminium cans are 100% recyclable. And the thing about the deposit refund schemes that people will not be out of pocket. It is not a tax. It's something, if they return the bottle, they get their money back. And these sort of economic instruments could also be used for other types of disposable items, for any sort of toxic material, anything to gather it back so it doesn't languish in landfills.
So apart from a deposit and return system, how else can we encourage change here in Ireland?
On a national level, we can look at levies on disposable items. A lot of people say, oh, the Irish won't do it. But when we introduced the plastic bag levy, overnight people stopped using plastic bags. People will change their behavior.
So who should these levies be aimed at?
They should be aimed at the manufacturers and the producers of the products, because we want to change their behavior. We want them to produce products that are less toxic and more reusable, more repairable, more recyclable.
And who collects this money and where should it go to?
Well, the government would collect it, but the money should go into an environmental fund to develop new product lines and to develop new ways of recycling and repair. I think the government's always been very hands-off in how to affect manufacturers. And so I think we're just kind of behind the ball here. I think we're still in the same rut that we feel that the environment will adversely affect jobs.
The EU have found that full enforcement of EU legislation on waste could save €72 billion a year and create over 400,000 jobs in Europe by 2020. That equates to 4,000 new jobs in Ireland. However, we also need to move away from the old linear model of consumption, where products are just disposed of if broken or used.
I've just arrived in this lovely town of Aughrim in County Wicklow, and there's a very active local community group in this town, and they've got a farmer's market on with local food, but they've got a repair cafe. Really interesting concept. Dying to see what it's all about. There, yeah. That's going to be, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it's a beautiful piece.
Yeah, lovely. I love this.
So far in Ireland, we've had about 10 repair cafes in the last year. The first one was in March. There have been events in shopping centres as part of farmers markets like this one, in cafes, in commercial cafes, and in all kinds of different formats. And we're planning to do at least 20 more in the coming year. So, you know, it really can catch on. And in Ireland particularly, it's caught on. We have the volunteers, and those volunteers just really like the challenge of doing this kind of thing. And it's all about showing people that they could do this kind of thing at home instead of throwing something out and replacing it, that they could just look at it again and go, well, maybe I could fix this too. And that's absolutely the core idea behind the Repair Cafe. It's trying to extend the life of the things we have and to reduce how much we have to buy to replace broken things.
And break. It's a great little, but then they paid, good money for it, but it will last, it does.
You've ever looked at the amount of stuff that gets wasted in landfills?
I do. I'm absolutely horrified. And, it comes down to changing the mindset. There is a better way. There has to be a better way.
While householders and communities need to play their part in dealing with their waste, it's essential that industry must also play its part in driving this behavioural change. Here in County Clare, Clean Ireland Recycling provides waste management services to the Midwest that is smarter than your ordinary curbside collection service.
So what's special about this truck here?
This truck, Duncan, is for collecting household waste, and it is a 3-compartment truck.
Three compartments?
Three compartments,
oh, good.
Yes. So we're able to collect the recycling, the residual waste and the food waste on one visit to the household. When we first rolled out the food waste collection in 2009, we were amazed by the amount of untouched bread, whole fruit that we were getting. From talking to our customers, they actually acknowledged that once they got a separate food waste collection, they realised how much food waste they were buying and how much they were actually wasting. So indeed, many have altered and changed their shopping habits and their meal preparation habits as a result. Okay, well, what we do is we weigh and identify it first.
Yeah.
Okay, the system records
How
it.
much?
6.5 kilos.
Okay.
We empty it.
I must say, I was very impressed with those small 25-litre food bins. They're great, and everybody seems to be responding well to the whole system of pay by weight.
It's better to separate food waste from garden waste. With only one collection for all 3 bins, this company is saving on both fuel costs and emissions. And they're hoping to save even more in the future. Clean Ireland are aiming for their trucks to be powered by the very waste that they're collecting. They've already begun this process by sending their food waste to an anaerobic digestion plant in County Limerick.
You're in the food reception building here, Duncan. The
Oh, I
truck
see
backs
it.
up and tips the food waste in here. From here it is pre-treated. Water will be added and it will be mixed into a homogeneous material before it is put into the pasteurizer for pasteurization. Right. So basically what's happening here is in these digester tanks, the food waste is broken down anaerobically, so that's in the absence of oxygen, to create a biogas. Right. And the gas is stored in the roof of these tanks. We'll have a look in the tanks, Duncan.
Oh, you can see in?
You might be able to see in, yeah. So what
Right.
you're seeing here is the digestate material being mixed around.
Okay. So what we're seeing inside here is biogas, but below it is the digestate, and that's mixing around there. It's about 37 degrees, and it's full of microorganisms that breaking it down into methane. It goes in and converts into energy. Really good.
The gas is piped to this CHP unit. So this combined heat and power unit is a 0.5 megawatt electrical output, which is exporting electricity to the national grid.
And then is it storing these big guys here?
This is a storage tank, Duncan, for the post-digestate material.
Okay.
They're storing the digestate after it has been broken down and then is spread on the farmland, neighbouring farmland, and this material, which is very high in nutrient, is a replacement for artificial fertilizers.
Which is really good one too. It's much better, isn't it? Yeah?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
All of the food waste that Clean Ireland collect goes into producing clean, renewable electricity in this plant here. And this has enough electricity to power about 500 houses in this area. This is what the circular economy is about, and we need much more of this.
To really tackle the problem of wasting our resources, we need to radically rethink our view of consumption. Policymakers would need to introduce tighter regulations and place levies on manufacturers, importers and retailers so that we all produce, consume and waste much less.
If we transform to a zero-waste society, this will stimulate new enterprises in recycling that will generate thousands of new livelihoods. We need to act now for the sake of our future generations. After all, we only have the one planet.